The air in the private hospital room was very cold. It smelled like soap and secrets. Amanda was exhausted after 16 hours of hard work to bring her babies into the world. Her skin was a beautiful deep brown and it shone with sweat. She sat in the bed wrapped in a thick red blanket. In her arms she held two small miracles. Their names were Hakeem and Jimin. They were soft, quiet, and perfect. Suddenly, the heavy door opened. Ha-Joon Park walked in. He was a powerful man in a dark, expensive suit. His face was pale and smooth like stone. He did not look like a happy father. He looked like a man about to make a cold business deal. He did not look at the babies. He only looked at a piece of paper in his hand. "Ha-Joon," Amanda whispered. Her voice was weak and shaky. She tried to smile. She thought he would be happy to see his sons. She thought their love would be enough. But Ha-Joon did not move toward her. He stood at the foot of the bed. His eyes were cold and sharp. "I looked at the results, Amanda," he said. His voice was as flat as ice. "The Park family must have a pure bloodline. These babies do not look like me. The test says they are not mine." Amanda felt her heart break into a million pieces. "What are you saying? They are your sons!" Tears ran down her face. She looked at the paper in his hand. It was a DNA test, but she knew it was a lie. Someone in the Mafia was trying to destroy her. She looked at his porcelain pale face, hoping to find a hint of kindness, but there was only judgment. "The test says you lied," Ha-Joon said. He adjusted his tie and checked his watch. He did not care about her pain. "You are no longer my wife. You are nothing to the Park Syndicate. You have 10 minutes to leave." He turned around and walked out without looking back. A second later, two big security guards came into the room. They told Amanda she had to leave right now. They did not care that she had just given birth. They did not care that she was still trembling. Amanda stood up slowly. Her body was in pain, but her mind was starting to clear. She was still wearing her thin hospital gown. She wrapped the red blanket tightly around herself and her two sleeping boys. She clutched them to her chest as she walked past the machines and the white walls. The security guards walked behind her to make sure she was gone. She stepped outside into the dark, busy night of Los Angeles. The wind was cold against her skin. She had no money, no home, and no one to help her. But she looked down at the tiny faces of Hakeem and Jimin. Ha-Joon thought he had destroyed her, but he was wrong. She was going to survive for her sons. She was going to find out who lied, and one day she was going to take back everything he had stolen. The black car stopped in a dark, narrow alley far from the bright lights of the hospital. The doors flew open, and the air smelled like old trash and wet pavement. The two guards did not say a word. They reached out and pushed Amanda onto the cold, hard sidewalk. She landed on her knees, her body still weak and sore. She pulled Hakeem and Jimin closer to her chest, making sure the red blanket stayed wrapped around them. The heavy car door slammed shut, and the tires screamed as the vehicle sped away, leaving them in the shadows of tall, broken buildings. Amanda looked around with wide, frightened eyes. This was a part of Los Angeles where the streetlights were all smashed. People moved quietly in the shadows, and she could hear loud, angry voices and the distant sound of sirens. She was completely alone. She had no money, no phone, and no shoes. Her light gray hospital gown was thin, and the night wind felt like tiny needles on her skin. She wanted to sit down and cry, but then she remembered the cold, porcelain-pale look on Ha-Joon's face. He had called her sons a mistake. He had looked at her like she was a problem he had finally solved. She looked down at the twins. They were starting to move, their tiny hands reaching out from the blankets. They were hungry and cold, and they only had her. "I will protect you," she whispered. Her voice was low, but it was stronger than it had been in the hospital. She realized she could not stay in this alley. She had to move before the shadows moved toward her. She began to walk, her bare feet pressing against the dirty concrete. Every step hurt her tired body, but she kept going. She eventually found a small, dim corner store that was still open. The neon sign flickered and hummed. Inside, a man sat behind a thick sheet of glass. He looked at Amanda's messy hair and hospital gown like she was trouble. Amanda did not care what he thought. She reached up into the tightly curled puff of her hair. Her fingers searched until they found something hard and very small. It was a tiny, flat, silver digital key. She had hidden it there months ago, back when she first noticed Ha-Joon's advisors whispering behind her back. She had been the syndicate's best digital architect for a reason, and she knew how to hide things where no one would ever look. This key held the codes to a secret burner account. It was her emergency fund, filled with money the Park family did not know she had saved. She saw an old, dusty computer in the corner of the store meant for customers. She walked over to it and plugged the tiny key into the side. Her fingers moved fast over the keyboard. She typed in long strings of secret numbers and passwords. The screen glowed, and a message appeared. Access granted. Amanda saw the balance on the screen. It was enough. It was enough to buy clothes, enough for a safe place to sleep, and enough to start her long walk back to power. She was no longer just a discarded wife. She was a mother with a mission, and she was just getting started. Amanda used the money from her secret account to find a hidden place to stay. She chose an old, broken-down loft in a part of the city full of empty factories. The windows were covered in dust, and the walls were made of cold brick. It was not a palace, but it had everything she needed: power and privacy. She bought soft blankets and warm milk for Hakeem and Jimin. She set up 3 very fast computers on a large wooden crate. While the twins slept in the quiet room, Amanda became the silent architect. She sat in the dark, her face lit only by the blue glow of the screens. The light made her deep mahogany skin look like polished wood. She was no longer the broken woman from the hospital. She was now a hunter. Her fingers moved like lightning over the keys. She began to break into the Park family's secret digital files. She knew where all the hidden doors were because she had built them herself years ago. She went deep into the group's private servers. She was looking for the digital version of the paper Ha-Joon had held, the lie that had destroyed her life. After hours of searching, she finally found the paternity file, but as she looked closer at the computer code, she felt a cold chill. The file had been changed. Someone had hacked into the system and switched the results just minutes before Ha-Joon walked into her hospital room. Amanda followed the digital trail. It was like following a path of crumbs in a dark forest. The trail did not lead to Ha-Joon. Instead, it led to his 2 most trusted advisors. These were the men who stood next to him every day in his black suits. They lied to him. They told him his sons were not his because they wanted Amanda gone. They wanted to control Ha-Joon, and they knew Amanda was too smart and too strong to let that happen. She sat back in her chair and watched the twins breathe. Her heart was still heavy with pain, but now it was also full of a cold, hard fire. Ha-Joon had been tricked, but he still threw her away like a problem he didn't want. He believed a piece of paper over the woman who loved him. They lied to him, she whispered into the dark room, but Amanda chose to believe the lie. Amanda looked back at her screens. The advisors thought she was a ghost. They didn't know that the silent architect was watching them from the shadows, and she was already building a trap to catch them all. Amanda used the money from her secret account to find a hidden place to stay. She chose an old, broken-down loft in a part of the city full of empty factories. The windows were covered in dust, and the walls were made of cold brick. It was not a palace, but it had everything she needed: power and privacy. She bought soft blankets and warm milk for Hakeem and Jimin. She set up 3 very fast computers on a large wooden crate. While the twins slept in the quiet room, Amanda became the silent architect. She sat in the dark, her face lit only by the blue glow of the screens. The light made her deep mahogany skin look like polished wood. She was no longer the broken woman from the hospital. She was now a hunter. Her fingers moved like lightning over the keys. She began to break into the Park family's secret digital files. She knew where all the hidden doors were because she had built them herself years ago. She went deep into the group's private servers. She was looking for the digital version of the paper Ha-Joon had held, the lie that had destroyed her life. After hours of searching, she finally found the paternity file, but as she looked closer at the computer code, she felt a cold chill. The file had been changed. Someone had hacked into the system and switched the results just minutes before Ha-Joon walked into her hospital room. Amanda followed the digital trail. It was like following a path of crumbs in a dark forest. The trail did not lead to Ha-Joon. Instead, it led to his two most trusted advisors. These were the men who stood next to him every day in his black suits. They lied to him. They told him his sons were not his because they wanted Amanda gone. They wanted to control Ha-Joon, and they knew Amanda was too smart and too strong to let that happen. She sat back in her chair and watched the twins breathe. Her heart was still heavy with pain, but now it was also full of a cold, hard fire. Ha-Joon had been tricked, but he still threw her away like a problem he didn't want. He believed a piece of paper over the woman who loved him. They lied to him, she whispered into the dark room, but Amanda chose to believe the lie. Amanda looked back at her screens. The advisors thought she was a ghost. They didn't know that the silent architect was watching them from the shadows, and she was already building a trap to catch them all. Amanda used the money from her secret account to find a hidden place to stay. She chose an old, broken-down loft in a part of the city full of empty factories. The windows were covered in dust, and the walls were made of cold brick. It was not a palace, but it had everything she needed: power and privacy. She bought soft blankets and warm milk for Hakeem and Jimin. She set up 3 very fast computers on a large wooden crate. While the twins slept in the quiet room, Amanda became the silent architect. She sat in the dark, her face lit only by the blue glow of the screens. The light made her deep mahogany skin look like polished wood. She was no longer the broken woman from the hospital. She was now a hunter. Her fingers moved like lightning over the keys. She began to break into the Park family's secret digital files. She knew where all the hidden doors were because she had built them herself years ago. She went deep into the group's private servers. She was looking for the digital version of the paper Ha-Joon had held, the lie that had destroyed her life. After hours of searching, she finally found the paternity file. But as she looked closer at the computer code, she felt a cold chill. The file had been changed. Someone had hacked into the system and switched the results just minutes before Ha-Joon walked into her hospital room. Amanda followed the digital trail. It was like following a path of crumbs in a dark forest. The trail did not lead to Ha-Joon. Instead, it led to his two most trusted advisors. These were the men who stood next to him every day in his black suits. They lied to him. They told him his sons were not his because they wanted Amanda gone. They wanted to control Ha-Joon, and they knew Amanda was too smart and too strong to let that happen. She sat back in her chair and watched the twins breathe. Her heart was still heavy with pain, but now it was also full of a cold, hard fire. Ha-Joon had been tricked, but he still threw her away like a problem he didn't want. He believed a piece of paper over the woman who loved him. They lied to him, she whispered into the dark room, but Amanda chose to believe the lie. Amanda looked back at her screens. The advisors thought she was a ghost. They didn't know that the silent architect was watching them from the shadows, and she was already building a trap. Amanda knew that digital walls were not enough to protect her sons. She had the mind of a master architect, but she did not know how to survive a street fight. To Rin, she needed a sword to go with her shield. She remembered a man named Kenji, a high-ranking enforcer for the Park Syndicate, who had been discarded months ago after a failed mission. Like her, he was a man the Mafia had tried to erase. She found him in a dim, dusty boxing gym at the edge of the city. He looked like a fallen king, his porcelain skin bruised and his eyes full of old anger. When Amanda walked in, holding Hakeem and Jimin, he didn't move. He simply watched her with the cold, analytical gaze of a predator. "The Park family thinks you are dead," Amanda said, her voice steady and clear. "But I can see you, and I can make sure they never see you again." Kenji laughed, a sound as dry as desert sand. "Why would the wife of a boss help a ghost like me?" Amanda showed him the screens in her loft and the data she had siphoned from the syndicate. She told him about the betrayal in the hospital and the lies told by Ha-Joon's advisors. She made him a deal. He would teach her the physical rules of the underworld, how to watch her back, how to hide in plain sight, and how to fight when there was no other choice. In return, she would use her digital keys to give him a new life. She would wipe his record and move his identity through secret servers until he was completely invisible to the Park family's trackers. The training was brutal. While the twins slept, Kenji pushed Ananda until her muscles screamed. He taught her how to spot a tail from 3 blocks away and how to turn a common pen into a weapon. He showed her that the underworld was not just about guns. It was about knowing what everyone else was thinking before they did. In exchange, Amanda became his teacher. She showed him how to navigate the dark web and how to vanish behind layers of encryption. She moved his digital footprint across the globe, making him a ghost that no one could haunt. As the weeks passed, Amanda felt her soft heart turning into iron. Her mahogany skin was no longer just beautiful, it was the skin of a warrior. She was the ghost's disciple now, and she was finally ready to stop running and start hunting. Amanda knew she could not trust a regular hospital ever again. To get the truth, she had to go where the law did not reach. Kenji took her to a secret clinic hidden beneath an old laundry shop. The air there was thick with the smell of steam and chemicals. The doctor was a man who did not ask questions as long as he was paid in cash. Amanda watched closely as he took small blood samples from Hakeem and Jimin. She used a triple-blind test. This meant she sent the samples to 3 different labs across the world. None of the labs knew her name, and none of them knew about the others. While she waited for the results, Amanda returned to the glowing screens in her dark loft. She dived back into the digital ruins of the hospital's records. She was no longer just looking for the change, she was looking for the person who had the power to make it happen. She found a hidden back door in the computer code, a secret way into the system that only a high-level leader would know. Deep inside the logs, she found a digital signature. It was like a tiny electronic name time left behind by a ghost. Amanda's breath caught in her throat. The code did not belong to the advisors she had tracked before. It belonged to a much older, more powerful account. She traced the signal back to a private server owned by Ha-Joon's mentor. This was the man who had raised Ha-Joon after his parents died. He was the man who had taught Ha-Joon how to lead the Park Syndicate with a heart of stone. Amanda realized the betrayal went much deeper than she had thought. The mentor did not want biracial children to inherit the empire. He wanted to keep the Park family pure so he could keep his own power over Ha-Joon. He had used his knowledge of the system to hack the records and turn a father against his own sons. A few days later, the 3 lab reports arrived. Each one said the same thing. Hakeem and Jimin were 100% Ha-Joon's sons. Amanda held the papers to her chest, her mahogany skin warm against the cold white sheets. She had the truth in her hands now, but she also knew that showing Ha-Joon these papers would not be enough. She had to dismantle the man who had taught Ha-Joon to be cruel. She had to show Ha-Joon that the person he trusted most was the one who had destroyed his family. The silent architect was done building her shield. It was time to build her trap. The Park Syndicate began to fall apart like a building with a weak foundation. For years, Amanda had been the secret brain behind their success. She had managed their money and kept their digital secrets safe. Without her, the syndicate was like a ship without a map. Their bank accounts were messy, and their secret deals were starting to fail. Ha-Joon's advisors tried to fix things, but they were not as smart as Amanda. They made mistakes that cost millions of dollars. Ha-Joon sat in his high-rise office, his porcelain pale face looking tired and gray. He wore his black luxury suits every day, but they felt heavy now. He looked at the glowing numbers on his desk, and for the first time in his life, he felt afraid. A mysterious person was attacking his empire. This person was not using guns or bombs. They were using money. Someone was quietly buying up every piece of debt the Park family owed to other people. In the world of the Mafia, if you own a man's debt, you own the man. In her dark loft, Amanda watched the screens. Her deep mahogany skin reflected the green and red lines of the stock market. Beside her, Hakim and Ji-min played quietly on a soft rug. They were growing fast, and their eyes reminded her of Ha-Joon every single day. But Amanda did not let herself feel sad. She was no longer just a mother, she was the guardian. Every time the Park Syndicate lost money, she was there to catch it. She bought their loans, she bought their unpaid bills. She was slowly becoming the owner of the very family that had thrown her away. Ha-Joon did not know who the guardian was. He only knew that his empire was slipping through his fingers. He called his mentor for help, but the older man had no answers. The mentor was too busy trying to hide his own secrets. As the weeks passed, the Park family's power faded. They were becoming weak and desperate. Amanda stayed in the shadows, her fingers moving over the keys like a master chess player. She was not just getting even, she was taking control. The man who had called her nothing would soon realize that she was now the only one who could save him. Ha-Joon sat alone in his cold, dark office. The lights of the Los Angeles skyline were bright outside the glass walls, but his room felt like a tomb. His empire was falling apart, and he did not know how to stop it. Every time he tried to save a part of his business, the guardian was there to take it away. He felt old, tired, and very small in his expensive black suit. Suddenly, his private computer made a soft chime. A new message had arrived. There was no sender name, only a small black icon of a shield. Ha-Joon felt a chill as he clicked the file. He expected another legal threat or a bank notice. Instead, the screen filled with a long medical document. It was the DNA report from the black market clinic. Ha-Joon's eyes moved quickly across the page. He saw the names of 3 different labs from 3 different countries. He scrolled to the very bottom, where the final result was written in bold letters. It was a 100% match. These were his children. The air left his chest like he had been punched. He remembered the hospital room and the way he had looked at Amanda with cold judgment. He had called his own sons a mistake. Then a second file opened. It was a video. The camera was pointed at a sunny corner of a brick loft. A small boy with deep brown skin and sharp, almond-shaped eyes was holding on to a wooden crate. He was shaking, his tiny legs trying to find their balance. A woman's hand, mahogany and strong, was reaching out just an inch away, ready to catch him if he fell. The boy let go of the crate. He took one shaky step, then another. He let out a bright, happy laugh that echoed through the speakers of Ha-Joon's silent office. The boy looked directly at the camera and smiled. Ha-Joon froze. The child's face was a perfect mirror of his own. The bone structure, the straight nose, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners, they were his carbon copies. The video ended, leaving Ha-Joon in total silence. He looked at his own reflection in the dark window and saw the same eyes looking back at him. For 10 months, he had believed a lie. He had trusted his mentor and his cold honor codes over the woman who had loved him. He had left his sons to grow up in a warehouse while he sat in a palace made of glass. The guilt hit him like a physical weight, heavier than any debt. He realized that Amanda had not just survived, she had become the very person who was destroying him, and she had every right to do it. Ha-Joon put his head in his hands and wept. He finally understood that he hadn't just lost a wife and a business, he had thrown away the only true legacy he ever had. Ha-Joon did not even look up when the heavy double doors of his penthouse were kicked open. He remained in his chair, staring at the frozen image of his son's first steps on the computer screen. The moon outside was large and red, casting a strange, bloody light over the room. The silence was broken by the sound of many footsteps on the polished marble floor. His mentor and the two advisors walked in, followed by 6 armed guards. They did not look like men coming to help, they looked like vultures ready to eat. "It is over, Ha-Joon," the mentor said. His voice was cold and old. "You have let this guardian take everything from us. You are weak, and your mind is full of ghosts. The Park Syndicate needs a leader who does not cry over a video of a child." Ha-Joon looked at the man who had raised him. He saw the greed in the mentor's eyes and the betrayal in the advisor's smiles. He realized they had been planning this blood moon coup for a long time. They had used the DNA lie to weaken his heart, and now they were using the financial collapse to take his throne. Ha-Joon did not reach for his gun. He felt like he deserved it. He had thrown away his family, so why should he keep his empire? "Do it," Ha-Joon said quietly. He closed his eyes. The mentor nodded to the guards. They raised their weapons, their fingers tightening on the triggers. But before they could fire, the massive glass windows of the penthouse shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Smoke grenades flew into the room, filling the air with a thick white cloud. The sounds of silent, high-tech movements filled the space. In the chaos, dark shapes moved like ghosts. There was the sound of heavy bodies hitting the floor and the quiet thwip of silenced darts. Within seconds, the smoke cleared. Ha-Joon opened his eyes and saw that his guards were all down. His mentor and the advisors were pinned against the wall by a tactical team dressed in matte black armor. At the head of the team stood a tall, strong man. He moved with the skill of a trained predator. It was Kenji. He looked at Ha-Joon with a look that was not quite kindness, but it was not hate either. On the shoulder of Kenji's armor was a glowing white patch. It was a black shield with a silver G in the middle, the Guardian insignia. "Who sent you?" the mentor screamed, his face red with anger. "Who do you work for?" Kenji did not answer him. He looked at Ha-Joon and spoke in a voice that was low and steady. "The owner of your debt has decided that you are more valuable alive than dead, for now." Ha-Joon looked at the shield on Kenji's arm. He realized that the person who had just saved his life was the same person who had been destroying his business. Amanda was not just watching him, she was controlling everything. She had known about the coup before he did. He was no longer the boss of the Park Syndicate. He was a prisoner of the woman he had discarded, and the real queen was finally coming home. The Park Syndicate building stood tall and cold against the Los Angeles sky. It was a fortress of glass and steel that usually made people feel small. Inside the main boardroom, the air was thick with fear. The mentor and the advisors were still being held by Kenji's men. Ha-Joon stood in the corner, his eyes fixed on the door. He was waiting for the person who now held his life and his future in her hands. The heavy oak doors opened with a loud thud. Amanda walked in. She did not look like the broken woman who had been pushed out of a car 10 months ago. She was dressed in a sharp, blood-red power suit that made her deep mahogany skin glow like a jewel. Her hair was styled in a perfect high crown. Her eyes were calm, but they were also very sharp. She did not look at Ha-Joon with love or hate. She looked at the room like a general who had already won the war. "Who do you think you are?" the mentor yelled. His voice was shaky. "You are just a wife we threw away. You have no right to be here." Amanda walked slowly to the head of the table. She sat in the largest chair and opened a thin silver laptop. She tapped a few keys and the huge screens on the wall flickered to life. "I am not your wife anymore," she said. Her voice was as cool and steady as a deep river. "I am the majority holder of every loan, every bank account, and every building the Park family owns. I spent the last 10 months buying your debt while you were too busy lying to each other. That makes me the owner of your syndicate." The screens showed the full truth. Amanda had used her skills as the silent architect to find every secret dollar and every hidden mistake. She showed the digital proof of the mentor's hack. She showed how the advisors had stolen money from the group. The advisors turned pale as they saw that their secret bank accounts were now completely empty. Amanda had moved all their money into a trust for Hakeem and Jimin with a single click. "You are finished," Amanda said, looking directly at the mentor. "Security will show you out. You have nothing left. No money, no power, and no name." The guards moved forward. The men who had ruled the city with fear were led out in silence. There were no guns fired. There was no blood on the marble floor. It was a perfect, bloodless digital takeover. When the room was finally empty, only Ha-Joon and Amanda remained. Ha-Joon took a shaky step toward her, his face full of deep regret. "Amanda," he whispered, "I know the truth now. I saw the video. I saw the papers. I am so sorry." Amanda closed her laptop and stood up. She looked at him, and for a second he saw the woman he used to know. But then her face became hard again. "I did not do this for you, Ha-Joon," she said. "I did this to make sure my sons never have to deal with people like your mentor. I am not here to be your wife. I am here to run this empire. You can stay and help me, but you work for me now." She walked past him toward the window, looking out at the city she now controlled. She was the queen, and she was done begging for a seat at the table. She had built a new table entirely. A year had passed since the night the Park Syndicate fell. The sun was setting over a beautiful, quiet estate by the ocean. This was Amanda's home now, a place of peace and strength. She stood on the high balcony, her deep mahogany skin glowing in the warm orange light. She was dressed in a simple but elegant silk robe. She didn't need the red suit today to show she was powerful. Everyone in the city already knew. From the shadows, she ran the entire business with a steady hand. She had turned the group into something better, something that protected people instead of hurting them. Below in the garden, two small boys were running through the grass. Hakeem and Jimin were toddlers now, full of life and laughter. They were the center of Amanda's world. They were safe and they were loved. The heavy front gate opened slowly. A man walked in, but he did not have the swagger of a boss. Ha-Joon Park was dressed in plain, casual clothes. He didn't have a team of guards or a luxury car waiting for him. He stood at the edge of the grass and waited. He did not move until Amanda gave him a small nod from the balcony. This was the rule. He was allowed to see his sons, but he had to earn every single minute. Ha-Joon walked toward the boys. When Hakeem saw him, the little boy let out a happy shout and ran toward him. Ha-Joon knelt in the grass and picked up his son, holding him tightly. He looked at Jimin and smiled, a real smile that reached his almond-shaped eyes. He spent the next hour playing, laughing, and being the father he had almost thrown away. He was no longer the cold, analytical man in the black suit. He was a man trying to fix a broken past. Amanda watched him from above. She didn't feel the old pain anymore. She didn't feel the need to beg for his love. She had something much better. She had respect. She had saved the syndicate, she had saved Kenji, and she had built a future for her children that no one could take away. As the sun dipped below the water, Ha-Joon looked up at the balcony. He saw Amanda standing there, tall and proud. He realized then that he had made a terrible mistake 10 months ago. He had thought he was discarding a wife who was a problem. Instead, his cruelty had forced her to become something he could never have imagined. He didn't just lose a partner, he had created a queen. He knew his walk back to her heart would be very long and very hard. But as he looked at his sons and then back at the woman on the balcony, he knew he would spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of them both. Amanda turned and walked back into her home, the queen of her own destiny, finally at peace.